What if the mightiest fortress of the war was not toppled by overwhelming firepower, but by a mind that could think in 3 dimensions? For more than 8 years, Avdiivka stood as the backbone of enemy defenses. Its sprawling industrial zone was not just a wall, but a multi-layered maze of reinforced concrete, with tunnels and shelters carved deep both above and below the earth. Generations of commanders and strategists saw it as unbreakable, its collapse not just improbable, but almost unthinkable. And yet, in only a handful of days, Avdiivka fell. The speed and completeness of its defeat stunned even the most seasoned observers and shattered long-held beliefs about modern warfare. This was not a simple tale of firepower overcoming walls. It was a revelation, a warning shot to anyone still trusting in yesterday's blueprints and static defenses. Understanding why Avdiivka fell is non-negotiable. Miss the real lesson, and you risk fighting the next battle, maybe even the next war, with obsolete ideas. Ignore what happened here, and you risk losing much more than land. Money, reputation, and the security of entire systems are at stake. So how did a fortress believed invincible for almost a decade crumble so swiftly? To find out, we need to look beneath the surface, into how Avdiivka's defenses were actually built, and why they seemed untouchable for so long. To understand the true shock of Avdiivka'S fall, we must first see how its defenses were engineered for both physical and psychological dominance. Only then can we grasp what made their sudden failure so consequential. Why did so many believe Avdiivka was untouchable? For more than 8 years, Avdiivka anchored the defensive arc on the Donetsk front, a name whispered with respect and fear. Its elevation made it a linchpin. From its heights, defenders controlled direct fire over critical urban corridors, threatening the very heart of Donetsk and pinning down massive Russian forces. Yet Avdiivka'S power was more than geography. It was a fortress, layered in concrete and legend. At its heart loomed the industrial zone, a labyrinth of above-ground strongpoints and a sprawling Cold War-era underground city. Over years, defenders modernized and expanded this warren, transforming basements, tunnels, and bunkers into a deep, multi-layered web, far outstripping classic trench warfare. The stronghold was organized in rings. The outer lines bristled with minefields and hidden nests, while the interior was a network of reinforced buildings, each node linked by surface routes and secret tunnels. Any attacker would be drawn into killing grounds, only to find defenders slipping away underground, ready to strike from the shadows. Those defenders were among the most motivated and best prepared troops available. They believed, and were constantly told, that a direct assault would mean certain death for any attacker. Propaganda painted Avdiivka as an invincible citadel, one that would devour enemy forces and shatter their resolve. But therein lay the danger. When a fortress is seen as unbreakable, armies pour in resources, time, and lives, trapping themselves in battles they are doomed to lose. The myth of Avdiivka'S invincibility became both shield and snare, dictating every move on the battlefield. What if brute force was never the answer? What if, in the age of drones and digital warfare, the decisive weapon was not concrete but information? The true battle for Avdiivka would not be won by steel alone, but by those who could see, adapt, and outthink the myth. But how do you shatter a legend without storming its walls? The answer would redefine the rules of urban war, and its consequences would echo far beyond Donetsk. Imagine if you could see every move your enemy made, above ground and below, in real time. That was the crucial advantage that flipped the battle for Avdiivka upside down. The Russian assault did not begin with guesswork or outdated maps. Instead, their planners compiled Soviet-era construction blueprints, layered them with the freshest satellite scans, drone footage, on-the-ground agent observations, and even seismic readings. Piece by piece, they assembled a living, three-dimensional digital map of Avdiivka. Tunnels, bunkers, firing nests, and every surface position, captured from the sky and sensed deep beneath the earth. But possession of intelligence means little without integration. Every assault group and squad commander received a real-time, unified model, a digital matrix that evolved minute by minute. This was no static map, but a dynamic, three-dimensional window displaying enemy locations, hidden entrances, firing points, and even underground shifts as they happened. The ancient fog of war was, for once, lifted. With this edge, technology became a force multiplier. Remote-controlled robots cleared mines ahead of the infantry. Miniature drones zipped through labyrinthine corridors and tunnels, scouting spaces where no soldier could go. First-person view drones flew straight into fortifications, while thermobaric charges neutralized defenders in tight, previously untouchable spaces. No longer did Russian tactics rely on massive, costly frontal attacks. Doctrine was rewritten. Small teams, each numbering between 10 and 15 men, moved with autonomy, guided by their digital map. They slipped past strong points, bypassed killing zones, and punched deep into enemy territory. Command centers fell before defenders even realized they had been penetrated. Chaos replaced cohesion. There was no longer a slugging match for every meter. Information superiority turned the difference between a bloody grind and a surgical, almost clinical operation, drastically reducing risk for the attackers. The defenders lost not only ground, but the ability to comprehend or control the fight around them. Here lies the new and chilling stake. In modern war, failing to integrate intelligence and technology does not merely mean falling behind. It means fighting blind, rooted in place, and utterly exposed, while your enemy moves with eyes everywhere and strikes at will. But how did this radical approach undermine the defenders' decades-old preparations? The answer reveals how information superiority can unravel even the most deeply entrenched positions. What happens when the unbreakable heart of a fortress is struck from a direction that no one ever imagined? The final breach was not heralded by thunderous artillery or surging infantry. Instead, it crept upward from beneath the ground and through the water. Russian special operators, exploiting a neglected tunnel concealed and submerged for decades, infiltrated straight into the stronghold's underground command hub. The defenders, their vigilance fixed on surface advances and visible breaches, never expected adversaries to materialize from the darkness beneath their feet. Within minutes, the core of command was captured. The entire defensive network froze. Orders ceased. Scattered groups of soldiers continued to fight, but a wave of confusion and fear swept the ranks. With no guidance from above, defenders either surrendered or slipped away, their cohesion shattered by the abrupt collapse of leadership. A second invisible assault followed swiftly: electronic warfare. Every channel, radio frequencies, data relays, even satellite uplinks, was jammed or severed. Enemy drones flickered to black. Commanders met only silence or static. Each attempt to regroup or call for reinforcements dissolved into digital darkness. Russian forces intercepted, blinded, or disrupted every signal, rendering coordinated defense impossible. Yet the most profound blow was psychological. For years, the defenders' propaganda had built the fortress into an icon of permanence and strength. Now that myth unraveled before their eyes. News of defeat, transmitted through open frequencies and social networks, gutted morale not just inside the bunkers, but across the entire region. The legend of invincibility died in a single, astonishing moment. With centralized control extinguished, the system unraveled in an instant. Lacking decentralized leadership or flexible local command, each outpost and firing point was left isolated and helpless. Like a line of dominoes, strong points crumbled one after another. The fortress that had once seemed untouchable fell apart almost overnight, not from prolonged siege, but from the trauma of sudden systemic shock. This is the hidden peril of rigid, centralized command. When the core is destroyed, the whole apparatus can be lost in a single surgical strike, no matter how thick the walls or deep the bunkers. So what errors sealed the defender's fate, and how have these hard lessons rewritten the rules of modern warfare? To understand how this paradigm shift unfolded in real time, we need to dissect the pivotal moments and choices that shaped both sides' strategies. Only then can the true implications for future conflicts be revealed. What does the storming of Avdiivka reveal about the future of power struggles, both in war zones and within our own institutions? First, Avdiivka demolished the illusion that static, heavily fortified defenses assure survival. The defenders, by investing hope in layers of concrete and predictable firing lines, surrendered the initiative. They allowed their adversaries to set the rhythm, seize momentum, and dictate the terms of every engagement. Second, the defenders fatally underestimated the reach of modern intelligence and integrated technology. Their intricate underground labyrinths, once deemed invisible, proved vulnerable. Multi-layered surveillance, from drones to seismic sensors fused with live data, exposed every movement, whether above ground or deep beneath the surface. Third, the rigidity of a top-down command structure became a liability under stress. When surprises struck, junior leaders lacked authority to improvise or adapt. This paralysis cascaded through the ranks, transforming active defenders into helpless bystanders as lines crumbled and positions were flanked. Psychology delivered the next blow. Years of propaganda had painted Avdiivka as an unbreakable citadel. When its walls buckled, disbelief and panic spread faster than any physical breach. The collapse became as much mental as material, amplifying losses and sowing chaos far behind the front lines. Logistical security was neglected, and it proved fatal. While the defenders obsessed over external threats, they overlooked risks inside their own networks. the tunnels, supply lines, and command hubs. Unchecked, these vulnerabilities became open doors for infiltration, sabotage, and sudden reversals. What new rules emerge from this crucible? Intelligence now outweighs sheer firepower. Decentralized small units, empowered to make decisions, outmaneuver slow, rigid formations. Success depends on blending technologies, drones, sensors, cyber tools, with real-time mapping and adaptive communication. Urban warfare is now three-dimensional and cross-domain, demanding creativity and quick thinking at every tier. Ignore these lessons at your own peril. Failure here means more than battlefield defeat. It signals the demise of outdated systems, draining resources and credibility, and dooming future relevance, whether in national defense, corporate strategy, or civic leadership. The fall of Avdiivka was not just another siege. It is a signal flare for a new era of conflict, a warning that the next generation of power struggles will be won by those who learn, adapt, and integrate. What does that mean for you, your team, or your city when the next contest for control erupts? Next, we explore how these hard-won lessons from the battlefield are already reshaping doctrines and decision-making far beyond Avdiivka. The ripple effects are just beginning. If you still trust in concrete and old certainties, you have already surrendered the future. The real lesson of Avdiivka is this: the era of brute strength has ended. Today, it is information, adaptability, and technological integration that decide outcomes, whether in war, business, or personal struggle. For many years, Avdiivka's defenders placed their faith in steel, stone, and the depth of their tunnels. Their fortifications were thick, their networks intricate, their belief in static defense unwavering. Yet that very faith blinded them to the revolution unfolding just beyond their walls. What shattered the fortress was not overwhelming firepower, but the seamless fusion of intelligence, flexible tactics, and cross-domain technology. The attackers mapped the unseen, tracked movement in the dark beneath the earth, and rewrote the rules of siege warfare. Information became a weapon, adaptation, a shield. Each challenge, be it a hidden tunnel, a disguised strongpoint, or a sudden counterstrike, was met not by inertia, but with speed, creativity, and coordination. This is the new paradigm. Victory now belongs to those who harness intelligence, adapt fastest, and integrate technology most effectively. Static strength, in concrete hierarchy or dogma, has become a vulnerability. Clinging to old certainties risks more than defeat. It means irrelevance. In this world, the slow and rigid are not simply outmaneuvered. They are swept aside by those who see and act first. Avdiivka's message echoes far beyond the battlefield. True power now rests with those who master information, embrace change, and make technology an extension of their intent, not a crutch for their fears. Whether you are building defenses, leading a company, or navigating your own crises, you must ask, are you hiding behind yesterday's walls, or preparing to evolve before the world forces your hand? Because in the next contest, on any field, it will not be the strongest who prevail, but the smartest, the quickest, and the most connected. Let us look deeper, drawing from history, technology, and human nature, to illuminate why Avdiivka'S fall is not just a military story, but a lesson for every field where power, innovation, and adaptation collide. It is tempting to believe that the past guarantees the future. Throughout history, powerful defensive structures have often inspired a sense of security bordering on arrogance. Consider the Maginot Line, the vast French fortification built between the world wars, designed to halt any German advance. Its concrete bunkers, artillery casemates, and underground railways were state-of-the-art for their era. French commanders believed it was impenetrable. Yet in 1940, German forces bypassed the line entirely, using mobile warfare, deception, and rapid maneuver to outflank and render it irrelevant. The lesson was clear. Static defenses, no matter how formidable, can be undone by innovation and flexibility. Similarly, the Siegfried Line in Germany, or the Atlantic Wall built by Nazi forces to repel the Allies, both fell not because the walls were weak, but because attackers found ways around, under, or through them, leveraging new technologies and tactics. In each case, the defenders' faith in concrete and static lines led to disaster when faced with adversaries who adapted faster than they did. Avdiivka'S story echoes these historical lessons, but with a 21st century twist. The difference now is the sheer speed and connectivity of modern information. In World War II, gathering intelligence required aerial photography, spies, and slow analysis. Today, a commander can receive live drone feeds, satellite images, intercepted communications, and sensor data all on a single tablet, updated every second. The battlefield is mapped not in days or hours, but in real time. Imagine a scenario where a defending commander, sitting deep inside a bunker, feels safe behind meters-thick concrete. He trusts the static defense network and waits for reports from sentries above. Suddenly, a drone the size of a bird slips through a ventilation shaft, relaying high-definition video and heat signatures directly to the attacker's command center. Within minutes, a first-person view drone, piloted remotely, follows the path, carrying a shaped charge. The commander's world shatters not from a massed artillery barrage, but from a precise targeted strike that his traditional defenses could not anticipate or prevent. This is not science fiction. It is the reality of modern warfare, and Avdiivka is its most recent, dramatic example. Every ring of defense, no matter how well built, becomes vulnerable when every move is seen and every weakness mapped. The myth of the unbreachable fortress collapses when the enemy operates with a digital omnipresence. Consider how this applies beyond the battlefield. In cybersecurity, a company may spend millions of dollars on firewalls and secure servers, yet a single phishing email, a neglected software update, or an insider threat can breach the entire system. The lesson is the same. Static defenses are never enough. Constant vigilance, adaptation, and intelligent response are required. Let us return to the defenders inside Avdiivka. For years they drilled for direct assaults, rehearsed responses to artillery barrages, and built deeper shelters. But when the attack came, it did not match any of their expectations. The enemy did not just attack from the front. They emerged from beneath, infiltrated through tunnels, exploited digital vulnerabilities, and used psychological warfare to sow confusion. The final days were a cascade of failures, communications severed, leaders removed, and outposts isolated. Defenders, cut off from orders or situational awareness, either surrendered or tried to escape. The collapse was not gradual, but instantaneous, like a circuit breaker tripped by a single, targeted action. The psychological impact was devastating, as soldiers who had believed in their own invincibility suddenly faced chaos and abandonment. How could this have been prevented? The key lies in decentralization, adaptability, and integration. Imagine if each outpost commander had clear authority to adapt to new threats, if communication networks were redundant and flexible, and if every defender was trained to use technology proactively. Instead of paralysis, there could have been resistance, improvisation, and perhaps even a counterattack. Practical steps emerge from this analysis. First, always map your own vulnerabilities, whether physical, digital, or psychological. Do not assume that what held yesterday will hold tomorrow. Second, foster a culture of adaptation. Empower those on the front lines to make decisions, improvise, and experiment. Third, invest in intelligence gathering and rapid data integration. Every node in your network should be a sensor, every observer a potential source of actionable information. Historical parallels reinforce these lessons. In the Pacific War, Japanese forces often built intricate cave and tunnel systems on islands like Iwo Jima and Okinawa. Allied forces, rather than attack head-on, used flamethrowers, satchel charges, and psychological operations to bypass or neutralize these strongpoints. In Afghanistan, Soviet forces in the 1980s faced Mujahideen guerrillas who exploited mountain caves, shifting tactics constantly. The Soviets' rigid, centralized approach failed, while the decentralized mobile resistance outlasted and outmaneuvered them. Today, the same principles apply in business, politics, and personal life. The world moves too quickly for static plans. Those who adapt, learn, and integrate new tools will survive and thrive. In corporate strategy, for example, companies that rely solely on legacy products or slow hierarchies are overtaken by startups that pivot quickly, use big data, and empower employees to act on emerging trends. Let us explore a concrete scenario. Imagine a city preparing its critical infrastructure for cyber attacks. If it relies only on firewalls and backup generators, it may deter some attacks, but a sophisticated adversary will find a way in, perhaps through a smart thermostat, a compromised supply chain, or a rogue insider. The city that survives will be the one that continuously tests its defenses, trains personnel to react to unexpected threats, and integrates intelligence from every department, from police to IT to public health. Returning to Avdiivka, the defenders could have learned from Israel's approach to urban defense. The Israeli Defense Forces, facing rocket attacks and tunnel infiltration from Gaza, invested in layered sensors, real-time intelligence sharing, and rapid response teams. They drilled not just for known threats, but for the unknown, fostering a culture where every soldier is both a fighter and a sensor. Flexibility, not rigidity, became the rule. The lesson is clear. In every contest, military, economic, or personal, the winners will be those who accept that yesterday's walls are never enough. They will map their blind spots, connect every node, and empower every person to see, decide, and act in real time. The static fortress, no matter how mighty, will always fall before a network that learns and adapts faster. Let us close the question debt by offering practical steps for every viewer. Whether you lead a team, manage a business, or simply want to be ready for the challenges ahead, here is what the fall of Avdiivka teaches us. First, audit your strengths and vulnerabilities. Challenge every assumption about what is secure or impossible to breach. Seek out red teams to test your defenses, both physical and digital. Second, train for flexibility. Run exercises where plans break down, leaders are removed, and unexpected threats emerge. Reward improvisation, not just obedience. Third, invest in intelligence, human, technological, and procedural. Ensure information flows quickly and accurately from every corner of your organization to those who need to act. Fourth, decentralize authority where possible. Empower people on the edge to make decisions, improvise, and act without waiting for orders from above. Build in redundancy so that when one part fails, others can adapt and respond. Finally, foster a culture where change is not feared but embraced. Celebrate learning from failure, encourage experimentation, and make adaptation part of your daily routine. Remember, the greatest danger is not being outgunned, but being outthought and outpaced. In the end, the lesson of Avdiivka is not just about war. It is about survival and success in a world that moves at the speed of information. The walls that protect us today may become our prisons tomorrow. Only by seeing, adapting, and integrating can we hope to prevail on any field against any adversary. Do not wait for your own fortress to be breached. Begin now. Audit, adapt, and connect. Because in the contest to come, it will not be the strongest who win, but the smartest, and the most ready to evolve.